Jake Morrison looked out at the stars from his ship's bridge. The view should have been beautiful, but all he could think about was how much space humanity had lost. Every week brought news of another human world under attack. Every month meant fewer safe places for his people to live. The ship's computer showed him the latest reports. Red dots marked where alien fleets had destroyed human colonies. Yellow dots showed where battles still raged. Green dots showed the few worlds humans still controlled safely. There were not many green dots left. "Captain, we're getting another distress call," said Lieutenant Mary Collins from her station. Her voice was tired. They had been getting distress calls every day for months. Most of the time, by the time human ships arrived to help, there was nothing left to save. Jake nodded slowly. "Put it through." The voice that came through the speakers was full of panic. "This is New Berlin Colony. We have 12 alien ships approaching. Our defense system can't stop them. Please, anyone who can hear this, we have families here. We have children." Jake closed his eyes. New Berlin was 3 days away at best speed. The alien ships would finish their attack in hours. He had heard the same desperate calls from dozens of colonies. The aliens called themselves the Hegemony Coalition, and they had decided that humans did not deserve to exist. "Send our location and tell them we're coming," Jake told Mary. It was a lie, and they both knew it. But sometimes a lie was the only kindness you could offer. On the moon, Admiral Lisa Carter stared at the same red dots that filled Jake's screen. Her command center was deep underground, protected by the best shields Earth could build. But she knew those shields would not hold forever. The aliens had better weapons, better ships, and more soldiers than humanity could ever match. "How many ships did we lose this week?" she asked her aide, Colonel Frank Green. 43, Frank replied. "We destroyed 8 of theirs." Lisa rubbed her temples. The math was simple and terrible. For every alien ship humans destroyed, they lost more than 5 of their own. At that rate, humanity would run out of ships long before the aliens did. The coalition had 12 different alien species working together. Some were giant lizard-like creatures called Vectar. Others looked like walking crystals and could make their ships disappear. The worst were the Krathen, bug-like aliens who used diseases as weapons. Each species hated humans for different reasons, but they all agreed on one thing. Humans were dangerous and had to be stopped. Dr. Peter Hayes worked in his lab trying to understand alien technology. He had pieces of destroyed alien ships, captured weapons, and computer data stolen from battlefields. But every time he thought he understood something, the aliens would show up with something even more advanced. "The Zephyrian shield generator uses quantum field manipulation," he explained to his assistant, Dr. Nancy White. "Our weapons can't even touch it because the energy passes right through." Nancy looked at the alien device on the table. It was beautiful in a strange way, like a piece of living crystal. "Can we copy it?" Peter shook his head. "We don't have the right materials. We don't have the right tools. We're like people with stone knives trying to build a computer." In another part of the galaxy, 8-year-old Amy Brooks ran through a field of golden wheat. She did not know that alien scout ships were watching her planet. She did not know that her father, Colonel Danny Brooks, had received orders to prepare for evacuation. She was just a little girl playing in the sunshine, picking flowers to give to her mother. Amy's world was called New Denver. It was a farming planet where families grew food to send to other human colonies. The people there were peaceful. They had no military factories, no weapons research, no strategic importance. But that did not matter to the coalition. To them, every human world was a target. Danny Brooks stood in his small office, reading reports from other worlds that had fallen. The pattern was always the same. First came the scout ships watching and recording. Then came the main fleet with overwhelming force. Finally came the bioweapons or bombardment that made sure nothing human survived. "How long do we have?" asked Major Bill Johnson, Danny's second in command. "Maybe a week," Danny replied. "Maybe less. Start the evacuation procedures. Families and children first." But they both knew the truth. New Denver had only 2 small transport ships. They could carry maybe 300 people. The colony had over 2,000 residents. Most would have to stay and hope for the best. Back on Earth, President John Mitchell met with his advisors in a bunker deep beneath the Capitol. The room was full of the smartest people humanity had to offer, but none of them had good news. "We could try negotiating again," suggested Secretary Helen Adams. "We've tried," John replied. "They won't even talk to us. To them, we're just pests to be eliminated. General Robert Clark, the head of Earth's military, spread his hands helplessly. We're fighting a war we can't win with weapons we don't understand against enemies we can't match. Our people are brave, but bravery isn't enough. The meeting went on for hours, but nothing changed. Humanity was losing, and everyone knew it. The aliens had spent centuries building their technology and their alliance. Humans had been in space for less than 200 years. They were too young, too weak, too isolated to fight back effectively. All across human space, families packed their few belongings and prepared to run again. Parents told their children not to worry, that everything would be fine. But the children could see the fear in their parents' eyes. On trading stations and neutral worlds, other alien species watched the destruction of humanity with quiet concern. Some felt sorry for the humans. Others thought they deserved their fate for expanding too quickly into space. But none of them dared to help. The coalition was too powerful, too ruthless. Anyone who aided humanity would become the next target. The galaxy had learned to fear the hegemony coalition. Their fleets were unstoppable. Their weapons could destroy entire planets. Their resolve was absolute. For 30 years, they had been pushing humanity back world by world, system by system. Fear ruled the stars and humanity was running out of time. Soon there would be nowhere left to run. The coalition's final solution to the human problem was almost complete. Amy Brooks picked another flower and added it to her small bouquet. Tomorrow she would give these flowers to her mother and tell her about the butterfly she had seen. She had no idea that tomorrow would never come, or that her death would change everything. The Crathan fleet appeared in the sky above New Denver like a dark cloud blotting out the sun. 60 warships, each one bigger than anything humanity had ever built. At the center of the fleet was the Plague Bringer, a massive dreadnought that looked like a giant metal insect. Colonel Danny Brooks was in his command center when the alarm started screaming. Red lights flashed everywhere. His officers ran to their stations, but everyone knew there was nothing they could do. New Denver had 12 small defense platforms and 2 patrol ships. Against 60 alien warships, they might as well have been throwing rocks. All civilian transports launch immediately, Danny ordered into his radio. Emergency evacuation protocol is now active. Get as many people out as you can. The 2 transport ships lifted off from the main spaceport, packed with families. Danny watched them on his screen as they climbed toward space. Behind them, Crathan fighter ships dropped through the atmosphere like falling stars. Amy Brooks was in her classroom when the attack began. Mrs. Sandra Lopez, her teacher, heard the sirens and knew what they meant. She gathered all 38 children in the room and led them to the school's emergency shelter in the basement. "Is this a drill?" asked 7-year-old Tommy Kim, Amy's best friend. "Just stay close to me," Mrs. Lopez said. She did not want to lie to the children, but she also did not want to frighten them more than they already were. Amy held Tommy's hand as they walked down the dark hallway. She could hear loud noises from outside, like thunder that never stopped. Through the windows, she saw bright flashes of light in the sky. The Crathan bio-soldiers landed near the school 20 minutes later. They were tall, insect-like creatures with black armor and razor-sharp claws. Their faces looked like a nightmare mix of spider and mantis. They moved quickly and quietly, surrounding the building before anyone inside knew they were there. Danny Brooks watched his defense platforms die one by one on his command screen. The alien weapons cut through human shields like they were made of paper. His patrol ships lasted less than 5 minutes against the Crathan fighters. "Sir, we're getting reports of ground forces at the school," Major Johnson said. His face was pale. "They have the children trapped in the building." Danny felt his heart stop. Amy was at that school. His little girl who drew pictures of flowers and sang songs about friendship was trapped with monsters who had come to destroy everything human. "Get every soldier we have to that school," Danny ordered. Now, but they both knew it was too late. The school was 15 minutes away. The Crathan moved fast when they wanted to kill. In the school basement, Mrs. Lopez tried to keep the children calm. She sang songs with them and told them stories. But the sounds from upstairs were getting closer. Heavy footsteps, metal scraping against metal, and underneath it all a clicking noise that made everyone's skin crawl. "Mrs. Lopez." "I'm scared," Amy whispered. "I know, sweetheart," the teacher said, putting her arm around Amy. "But you're very brave. Your daddy would be proud of you." Amy nodded. She thought about her father, who always told her that soldiers protected people who could not protect themselves. She wondered if he was coming to save them. The basement door exploded inward. 3 Krathan soldiers filled the doorway, their black eyes reflecting the emergency lighting. The children screamed and pressed against the far wall. Mrs. Lopez stepped in front of them, spreading her arms wide. "Please," she said in the universal language that all species understood. "They're just children. They can't hurt you." The lead Krathan, General Thexakar, tilted his head and studied the humans. His translator device made his words sound cold and mechanical. "Human spawn grow into human soldiers. Better to end the cycle now." "They're babies," Mrs. Lopez pleaded. "Look at them. They don't even understand what's happening." Amy stepped forward even though she was terrified. In her small hand, she held the drawing she had made that morning. It showed Earth's blue oceans, a world she had never seen but dreamed of visiting someday. "Please don't hurt my daddy," she said in her tiny voice. General Thexakar looked at the drawing, then at the small human child. For just a moment, something that might have been doubt flickered in his alien eyes. Then he remembered his orders from the Coalition High Command. Make an example. Show the humans what happened to those who refused to surrender. The security cameras recorded everything that happened next. Later investigators would wish they had not. The footage would be sent to every human world, every ship, every station. It would be seen by billions of people, and it would change everything. Amy Brooks died holding her drawing of Earth's oceans. Her last words, clear and heartbreaking on the recording, were her plea for her father's safety. Tommy Kim died next to her, still holding her hand. Mrs. Lopez died trying to shield children who were already gone. When Colonel Danny Brooks arrived at the school with his soldiers, he found 38 small bodies arranged in neat rows. The Krathan had not just killed them. They had displayed them as a message. This is what happens to humans who do not surrender. Danny fell to his knees beside his daughter's body. She looked so small, so peaceful. The drawing was still in her hand, crumpled but not torn. He took it gently and held it against his chest. The footage reached Earth 6 hours later. Admiral Lisa Carter watched it in her command center, surrounded by her staff. Grown soldiers, people who had seen every kind of warfare, turned away from the screens. Some were crying. Others were sick. President John Mitchell watched it alone in his office. When it was over, he sat in silence for a long time. Then he picked up his phone and called an emergency meeting of Earth's government. Dr. Peter Hayes stopped his research when he saw the recording. He stared at his ceiling for 3 hours without moving or speaking. His assistant found him there and asked if he was all right. Peter did not answer for a long time. Finally, he said, "They killed children. Not soldiers, not threats. Children who were begging for their lives." The news spread across human space like wildfire. On every ship, every station, every colony, people gathered to watch the footage from New Denver. They saw Amy Brooks ask the monsters not to hurt her daddy. They saw her die for no reason except that she was human. Something fundamental changed in humanity that day. The death of Amy Brooks did not break the human spirit. It forged it into something new, something harder, something the galaxy had never seen before. President Mitchell addressed the human worlds that night. His speech was short and simple. "They have made their choice," he said. "They chose to murder children who posed no threat, who carried no weapons, who begged for their lives in words that were perfectly clear. They did this to frighten us into surrender." He paused, looking directly into the camera. "They have failed. They have not made us afraid. They have made us angry. And now they will learn what humanity becomes when you murder our children." Across human space, military commanders received new orders. Scientists abandoned their defensive research projects. Civilians volunteered for military service in numbers that overwhelmed recruitment centers. The Hegemony Coalition had wanted to teach humanity about fear. Instead, they had awakened something that would hunt them across every star in the galaxy. They had killed a little girl who drew pictures of oceans and flowers. Now they would face the consequences of that choice. The message went out to every human ship, station, and colony at exactly midnight Earth time. 3 simple words appeared on every screen. Protocol 7 active. Most humans had never heard of Protocol 7. It was not in any public document or military manual. Only the highest levels of Earth's government knew what it meant. But within hours, its effects began to show. Captain Jake Morrison received his new orders while his ship was patrolling near the outer colonies. He read them 3 times before he believed what he was seeing. For 30 years, human military doctrine had focused on defense, retreat, and survival. Now everything was changing. All ships prepare for offensive operations, the orders read. Target selection is at individual commander discretion. Rules of engagement are suspended. Repeat, rules of engagement are suspended. Jake looked at his crew. They were good people, professional soldiers who had spent years following careful procedures and international laws. Now they were being told to do whatever they thought was necessary. "Sir," said Lieutenant Mary Collins, "what does this mean exactly?" Jake folded the orders and put them in his pocket. "It means we stop running." On Earth, Dr. Peter Hayes walked into his laboratory with a new purpose. For months, he had been trying to copy alien technology, always playing catch-up with enemies who were centuries ahead. Now he had different instructions. "Forget about matching their technology," Admiral Carter had told him. "Make something uniquely human, sir." Gathered his research team around a table covered with salvaged alien equipment. Dr. Nancy White looked confused as Peter pushed aside the crystal, computers and plasma generators they had been studying. "We're not going to beat them at their own game," Peter announced. "So we're going to play a different game entirely." He pointed to a simple human device on the table, a basic quantum scanner that every Earth ship carried. "What makes humans different from every other species we've met?" Nancy thought about it. "We adapt quickly? We're unpredictable," Peter said. "Every alien species we've encountered follows logical patterns. They build better versions of the same things. They improve efficiency and power. But humans? We do crazy things that shouldn't work." The project that emerged from Peter's lab was called the Chaos Engine. It was not more powerful than alien weapons. It was not more efficient than alien shields. But it made human ships impossible to predict or target accurately by using quantum uncertainty as a weapon. Colonel Danny Brooks stood at his daughter's grave on New Denver. The attack was over. Most of the colonists had survived, but Amy and the other children were gone forever. Danny held the crumpled drawing she had died protecting. Major Johnson approached carefully. "Sir, we have new orders from Earth Command." Danny did not look up from the small headstone. "What do they want now?" "They want you to take command of all military operations in this sector. They're promoting you to general." Danny finally looked at his second in command. "Did they say why?" Johnson nodded slowly. "Because you understand what we're fighting for now." The first test of humanity's new approach came when Captain Jake Morrison encountered a Zephyrian patrol near the Centauri system. The alien ships were beautiful, looking like living crystal that caught and reflected starlight. They had shields that could phase in and out of normal space, making them nearly impossible to hit. In the old days, Jake would have tried to avoid the patrol or fought a careful defensive battle. Instead, he ordered his ships to do something that violated every rule of space combat. "All ships, emergency jump directly into the enemy formation," Jake commanded. "Sir, that's impossible," Mary Collins protested. "We'll materialize inside their ships. The collision will destroy everyone." "Exactly," Jake said. The human ships jumped. 3 of them materialized inside Zephyrian vessels, causing massive explosions that destroyed both human and alien ships. The other human ships appeared right next to the surprised Zephyrians and opened fire at point-blank range. When the battle was over, 12 advanced Zephyrian ships were destroyed. Jake's fleet was gone too, but they had sent a message that echoed across the galaxy. Humans were no longer fighting to win battles. They were fighting to make their enemies afraid. The ESS Vengeance launched from Earth's orbital shipyard ahead of schedule. It was humanity's newest and most advanced battleship, commanded by Captain Rachel Stone. But the real weapon was not the ship itself. It was the crew. Every person on the Vengeance had volunteered after seeing the footage from New Denver. They were parents who had lost children, soldiers who had watched colonies burn, scientists who were tired of always being 3 steps behind. They called themselves the Remember Amy crew. "We're not going home until every Crathan world is ash," Captain Stone told her officers. "We're not taking prisoners. We're not negotiating. We're hunting." President John Mitchell addressed the galaxy from Earth's capital. His speech was broadcast on every frequency, translated into every known language. "To the Hegemony Coalition and all who support them," he began. "You have made a fundamental error. You believed that murdering children would make humanity surrender. Instead, you have shown us exactly what kind of monsters we are fighting." He held up Amy Brooks's drawing of Earth's oceans. This was drawn by Amy Brooks, age 8. She dreamed of seeing Earth someday. She loved flowers and butterflies. She sang songs about friendship and peace. You killed her to send a message about human weakness. Mitchell's voice grew cold. The message you actually sent was different. You told us that there is no crime too horrible for you to commit. No innocent too young for you to murder. No limit to your cruelty. Very well. If you choose to fight without honor, without mercy, without conscience, then you will face humans who have learned to do the same. The coalition leadership received reports of the speech with amusement. Humans had always been emotional and dramatic. They would rage for a while, then return to their pattern of defensive retreats and desperate negotiations. But the reports that came in over the following weeks were different. Human ships were appearing in impossible locations, striking targets that should have been unreachable. A human battle group somehow penetrated the Vectar home system's defenses and destroyed their main weapons factory. Another human fleet eliminated an entire Krathan supply convoy by ramming ships whose crews had deliberately infected themselves with Krathan bioweapons to develop immunity. Dr. Hayes's chaos. Engine technology spread to every human ship. Suddenly, alien targeting systems could not lock onto human vessels. Alien battle computers could not predict human tactics. Human ships would phase in and out of normal space using controlled reactor overloads that should have killed everyone on board. The galaxy watched in growing amazement as humanity transformed from desperate refugees into something entirely new. Species that had remained neutral in the war began quietly offering assistance to human forces, not out of sympathy, but out of fear. General Danny Brooks established his new headquarters on the burned ruins of Amy's school. From there, he planned operations with a single goal: hunt down every coalition commander who had been at New Denver. They wanted to make an example of our children, he told his staff. Now we'll make an example of them. The Amy Brooks Memorial Fleet launched from hidden bases across human space. These ships had volunteer crews made up entirely of people who had lost family members to the coalition. They painted Amy's drawing on the side of every ship, along with the names of every child who had died. The coalition finally understood that something fundamental had changed when a human ship appeared in orbit around the Krathan capital world. The ship broadcast a simple message: remember Amy Brooks. Then it rammed itself into the planet's orbital defense station, destroying both the station and the ship in a massive explosion. Fear began to spread through the coalition ranks. These were not the same humans they had been fighting for 30 years. These humans fought like they had nothing left to lose. These humans treated their own lives as weapons to be used without hesitation. The galaxy had awakened something terrible by killing a little girl who drew pictures of flowers. Now that thing wore human faces and hunted among the stars, and it would not stop until every one of Amy's killers was dead. 6 months after Amy Brooks died, the galaxy's balance of power had completely changed. Human ships appeared where they should not exist, struck targets that should have been impossible to reach, and used tactics that made no sense to any military computer. Commander Steve Williams stood on the bridge of the ESS Retribution as it dropped out of hyperspace inside the Vectar home system. Around him, his crew worked quietly at their stations. They had spent 3 months planning this mission, figuring out how to penetrate the most heavily defended system in coalition space. All enemy sensors are jammed, reported Lieutenant Kate Davis. The Chaos engine is working perfectly. Steve nodded. The Vectar had built their defense network assuming that enemies would attack from outside the system, fighting through layers of patrol ships and defense platforms. They never imagined that human ships could appear directly in their home system's inner orbit. Target the weapons manufacturing complex, Steve ordered. Full spread of quantum torpedoes. The factory complex that built most of the coalition's advanced weapons vanished in a series of brilliant explosions. 30 years of military research and production capability disappeared in less than 10 minutes. The ESS Retribution jumped away before the Vectar could organize a response. Steve's ship was back in human space before the aliens even understood what had happened. Dr. Peter Hayes watched the mission reports with satisfaction. His Chaos engine technology had turned humanity's weaknesses into advantages. Human ships were still smaller and weaker than alien vessels, but now they could appear anywhere without warning. The Zephyrians are trying to adapt, Dr. Nancy White told him. They're modifying their sensors to detect quantum fluctuations. Peter smiled grimly. Then we'll give them something new to worry about. His next project was even more ambitious. If aliens wanted to play the technology game, humans would change the rules completely. The new weapon he was designing did not try to match alien firepower. Instead, it turned the enemy's own technology against them. On the former Krathen colony world of Nexus 7, General Danny Brooks studied intelligence reports from across the galaxy. His teams had been hunting Coalition commanders for months, tracking down everyone who had been involved in the New Denver massacre. "We found General Thexkar," Colonel Bill Johnson reported. "He's commanding the defense of Krathen Prime." Danny looked at the file. Thexkar was the Krathen who had personally executed Amy and the other children. The alien who had looked at a little girl's drawing and decided she deserved to die. "Good," Danny said. "I want that one for myself." Admiral Lisa Carter's fleet approached the Krathen capital system with 200 ships. It seemed impossible. The Krathens had 4,000 vessels defending their homeworld, including their most advanced plague ships and bioweapon factories. But human tactics had evolved beyond anything the aliens could understand. Carter's ships did not try to fight a traditional battle. Instead, they used kamikaze attacks, infected crews who had developed immunity to Krathen bioweapons, and coordination patterns that seemed completely random but were actually precisely planned chaos. "Remember, Amy Brooks," Carter broadcast to her fleet as the battle began. The human ships scattered in all directions, moving in patterns that confused Krathen battle computers. Some ships rammed themselves into enemy vessels. Others released clouds of human-modified viruses that turned Krathen bioweapons back on their creators. Still others used the Chaos Engine to appear inside Krathen ships and detonate their reactors. The Battle of Krathen Prime lasted 18 hours. When it was over, the entire Krathen home fleet was destroyed. Admiral Carter's ship was gone too, vaporized in the final assault on the planet's orbital defense grid. But her sacrifice opened the way for the ground invasion. General Danny Brooks led the landing force personally. He wanted to look into General Thexkar's eyes when he pulled the trigger. The remaining Coalition species watched the destruction of Krathen Prime with growing terror. 3 of their member species had already surrendered unconditionally after human fleets appeared in their home systems. The others were beginning to realize that they had awakened something that would not stop until they were all dead. Captain Rachel Stone commanded the Amy Brooks Memorial Fleet as it hunted down Coalition supply lines. Her ships were crewed entirely by volunteers who had lost family members to alien attacks. They painted the names of dead children on their hulls and took no prisoners. Zephyrian transport convoy detected, her tactical officer reported. 12 cargo ships with minimal escort. "Destroy them all," Rachel ordered. "Leave no survivors." The Memorial Fleet struck like ghosts, appearing without warning and vanishing before enemy reinforcements could arrive. They targeted not just military installations, but the infrastructure that kept Coalition worlds functioning. Food shipments, medical supplies, civilian transports. Nothing was off limits. Dr. Hayes's new weapon systems began appearing on human ships across the galaxy. The feedback pulse could turn alien shields into explosive devices. The resonance cannon made alien hull armor vibrate itself apart. The neural disruptor sent signals that confused alien computer systems and drove their organic crews insane. "We're not trying to match their technology anymore," Peter explained to a group of military commanders. "We're making their technology work against them." President John Mitchell received daily reports of human victories across the galaxy. Species that had been neutral in the war were now quietly offering aid to human forces. Some provided intelligence about Coalition movements. Others allowed human ships to use their space stations for repairs. "They're not helping us because they like us," Mitchell told his cabinet. "They're helping us because they're afraid we might target them next." The transformation of humanity had a price. The people who volunteered for suicide missions, who developed immunity to alien bioweapons, who spent months hunting down individual enemy commanders. They were not the same people who had tried to negotiate peace 30 years ago. Commander Williams returned from another successful raid, his ship damaged but his crew victorious. But when he looked in the mirror, he saw something different in his eyes. The same thing he saw in every human who had been fighting too long. "We're becoming the monsters we're fighting," he told his first officer. "Maybe," Lieutenant Davis replied, "but they made that choice for us when they killed Amy Brooks." The Hegemony Coalition leadership met in emergency session on their hidden capital world. 7 of their 12 member species had been completely destroyed or had surrendered. The remaining 5 were barely holding their territories against human attacks. "How is this possible?" demanded the Vectar Supreme Commander. "They were nearly extinct 6 months ago." "They changed," replied the Zephyrian delegate, her crystal form flickering with stress patterns. "They stopped trying to survive and started trying to win." "No," corrected the senior Krathan representative, one of the few survivors of his species. "They stopped trying to win and started trying to make us pay." General Danny Brooks finally found General Thexkar in the ruins of the Krathan capital. The alien commander had been reduced to hiding in underground bunkers, commanding a resistance force of fewer than 1,000 survivors. Danny cornered him in the same type of room where Amy had died, a basement shelter full of desperate, frightened people. But this time the roles were reversed. "You remember a little girl with a drawing?" Danny asked, holding Amy's picture. Thexkar's translator made his voice sound broken and mechanical. "Many humans died. I do not remember individuals." Danny smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You should have remembered this one." The execution of General Thexkar was broadcast across the galaxy. It marked the official end of coalition resistance and the beginning of a new age. The species that had once ruled the stars now cowered in hidden colonies, hoping that the humans would be satisfied with their victory. But humans had learned something terrible about themselves during the war. They had discovered that they could become anything they needed to become, pay any price, sacrifice anything, if the cause was important enough. Amy Brooks's drawing hung in every human ship and station, a reminder of what they had lost and what they had become to avenge it. The galaxy would never be the same, and neither would humanity. 2 years after Amy Brooks died, the Hegemony Coalition no longer existed. 7 of the 12 species had surrendered completely. 3 more had been wiped out entirely. The Krathan numbered fewer than 10,000 survivors, scattered across remote worlds and constantly hunted by human ships. General Danny Brooks stood in the ruins of General Thexkar's command center on Krathan Prime. The alien's body lay at his feet, killed with the same type of weapon that had murdered his daughter. Around him, the last Krathan stronghold burned under a red sky. "Sir," said Colonel Johnson, "we're getting reports that the remaining Vectar colonies want to negotiate surrender terms." Danny looked down at the drawing Amy had made, now carefully preserved behind protective glass. Earth's blue ocean seemed to shimmer in the firelight from the burning city. "No negotiations," he said quietly. "No terms. They wanted to teach humanity about fear. Now they can learn about consequences." The last Vectar worlds fell within a month. The crystalline Zephyrians lasted slightly longer, but their ability to phase through matter could not protect them from human ships that appeared inside their vessels, using controlled reactor overloads. The few remaining coalition species simply vanished, their populations fleeing to unknown regions of space. President John Mitchell stood before the burnt remains of the coalition's former Capitol building. The entire galaxy was watching as he delivered humanity's victory speech. 2 years ago, you murdered 38 children on a farming world called New Denver, he began. You did this to frighten us into surrender. You believed that showing us your cruelty would break our will to fight. He held up Amy's drawing, now famous across the galaxy. Amy Brooks was 8 years old. She drew pictures of worlds she had never seen and sang songs about friendship. You killed her because she was human, and you thought human lives had no value. Mitchell's voice grew colder. You were wrong about human lives, but you were also wrong about fear. You wanted to teach us to be afraid of you. Instead, you taught us that some things are more important than being civilized. You taught us that sometimes becoming monsters is the only way to protect what matters. Commander Steve Williams sat in his quarters aboard the ESS Retribution, reading reports from across the galaxy. Every day brought news of new human colonies being established on former coalition worlds. The expansion was happening faster than anyone had expected. His door chimed. Lieutenant Kate Davis entered, carrying a data pad with intelligence reports. "The neutral species are asking about our intentions," she said. "They want to know if we plan to attack them too." Steve considered this. 6 months ago, he would have laughed at the idea. Humans had always been the victims, the species running from stronger enemies. Now every alien civilization in known space was afraid of them. "What do you think we should tell them?" he asked. Kate looked uncomfortable. "I don't know, sir. A year ago, I would have said we're peaceful. But after everything we've done, after all the worlds we've burned, are we still the good guys? Dr. Peter Hayes worked in his expanded laboratory complex, now the largest military research facility in human space. His Chaos Engine technology had evolved into weapon systems that violated the basic laws of physics. The feedback pulse could turn an enemy's shields into explosive devices. The reality anchor prevented alien ships from using faster-than-light travel. Dr. Nancy White brought him the latest test results. The new quantum disruptor worked perfectly. We can now disable any known alien technology from a distance of 50 light-years. Peter studied the data. The weapon was incredibly powerful, capable of shutting down entire alien civilizations without firing a shot. It was also completely unpredictable, potentially affecting neutral species or even human technology. "Are we going too far?" Nancy asked quietly. Peter looked at Amy Brooks' picture, which hung on his laboratory wall along with photos of all the other children who had died. "They chose to play this game. We're just playing it better than they expected." Captain Rachel Stone commanded the expanded Amy Brooks Memorial Fleet from the bridge of the ESS Vengeance. Her ships now numbered in the hundreds, crewed by volunteers who had lost everything to the Coalition. They no longer hunted specific targets. They simply eliminated any non-human presence in systems that humans wanted to colonize. "Alien research station detected in the Kepler system," her tactical officer reported. "Appears to be a scientific outpost with minimal defenses." "Species?" Rachel asked. "Unknown. They're broadcasting neutral identification codes and requesting safe passage." Rachel looked at the tactical display. A few months ago, she might have allowed a neutral science station to leave safely. But the war had changed her, changed all of them. "Destroy it," she ordered. "We can't risk them reporting our position to anyone who might be hostile." The research station vanished in a brief flash of light. Rachel felt nothing as she watched it die. That was perhaps the most frightening change of all. How easy it had become to end lives. Admiral Lisa Carter had died in the Battle of Crathen Prime. But her replacement, Admiral Mark Turner, continued her work. Human fleets now patrolled vast areas of space that had once belonged to the Coalition. They were not just defending human territory anymore. They were expanding it. "The Galactic Council is requesting a meeting," his aide informed him. "They want to discuss human territorial claims." Mark laughed bitterly. "The same Galactic Council that refused to help us when the Coalition was destroying our worlds? Tell them we'll consider their request after we've finished securing our new borders." "How far do our new borders extend, sir?" Mark looked at the star map displayed on his wall. Red zones marked areas under human control. "They were growing every day. As far as we want them to," he said. General Danny Brooks established his new headquarters on Earth, in a building that had once housed the Department of Alien Relations. The irony was not lost on him. Humanity no longer needed to maintain relations with other species. They needed to decide which ones would be allowed to continue existing. "The Altarian Empire is offering tribute," Major Johnson reported. "Food shipments, raw materials, whatever we want. They just don't want to fight us." Danny nodded absently. The Altarians had been neutral during the war, but they had also refused to provide sanctuary to human refugees. Now they were terrified that humanity would remember that choice. "Accept their tribute," he decided. "For now." President Mitchell received visitors in his office, representatives from dozens of alien species, all wanting to negotiate some form of peace treaty with humanity. They brought gifts, promises of friendship, offers of technology and resources. "We deeply regret the actions of the former coalition," said the Centaurian ambassador, a tall, thin alien with multiple arms. "Our government had no involvement in their crimes." "But you didn't help us either," Mitchell replied. "When human children were being murdered, when our colonies were burning, when we begged for sanctuary, where were you then?" The ambassador's skin changed color, a sign of extreme stress in his species. We were afraid of coalition retaliation." Mitchell smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. "And now you're afraid of human retaliation. Fear seems to be the only language the galaxy understands." Across human space, the transformation continued. Children born after Amy Brooks's death grew up in a galaxy where humanity was the dominant power. They learned about the war in school, about the Coalition's crimes and humanity's response. They saw Amy's drawing in museums and government buildings, a reminder of why their species had become what it was. Dr. Hayes developed new technologies that pushed the boundaries of known science. Commander Williams led fleets that could appear anywhere in the galaxy within hours. Captain Stone's memorial fleet had become a legend, whispered in alien nightmares, ships that struck without warning and left no survivors. The galaxy's remaining species watched, humanity with a mixture of respect, terror, and hopeless resignation. They had created this monster by murdering one innocent child. Now that monster ruled the stars and it wore human faces. Amy Brooks's drawing hung in the rotunda of Earth's Capitol building, preserved behind crystal and surrounded by the flags of 1,000 human worlds. Visitors from across the galaxy came to see it, to understand what had started humanity's transformation from victims to conquerors. The plaque beneath the drawing was simple. Amy Brooks, age 8. She dreamed of seeing Earth's oceans. Her death taught humanity that some dreams are worth any price to protect. General Brooks visited the memorial often, standing before his daughter's picture and remembering the little girl who had loved flowers and butterflies. Sometimes he wondered what she would think of what humanity had become in her name. Would she be proud that her death had led to such complete victory, or would she be horrified by the price that victory had required? He never found an answer to that question. Perhaps there was no answer. Perhaps the only truth was that the galaxy had made its choice when it decided that murdering children was acceptable warfare. Now humanity had made its choice in return. They had become exactly what they needed to become, to ensure that no human child would ever die helpless and afraid again. They had become the monsters that monsters feared. The age of human expansion had begun, built on the grave of one innocent girl and the ashes of those who thought her life meant nothing. Amy Brooks had wanted to see Earth's blue oceans. I